I know I've been following Elon Musk's concerns about AI, and I see that I see that it's already growing kind of out of control.
Yeah.
Because the advances are coming too fast for any sort of regulations or agreements between the parties. So yeah, my concerns are pretty much the same, that things will get out of hand. I mean, the worst nightmare scenario is that they will take over the world. AI will take over the world and drive humanity to extinction. That's rather predictable, is with advances in AI and the creation of fake videos and fake documents and photography and fake voice recordings and everything. I think we're fast approaching a point in time where we cannot believe anything that we see. The first assumption about anything that we see or hear must be that it's fake.
So your capsule descriptions for the meantime.
Yeah, but when I get started, I don't stop.
So this is maybe this makes it even eerier because I cannot for the life of me find it, and I know on more than one occasion I have gone and either saved it to a Google Drive or on my hard drive.
You probably already have it operational in your system.
Or my phone even. And I cannot for the life of me find it.
It's there. It's hiding already.
it has to be. Because I have made this a point, I don't know how many times, to save this thing because I always have this problem trying to find it.
Is it a story you can recount in your own words?
Oh, no. It would not do it justice if I either.
Okay, so I propose that I'll fill the air with my take on it and illustrating it, larding it, or leavening it with several examples of how AI could go horrifically wrong. AI, as all powerful, newly emerging technologies, is obviously already quite powerful, and it's only going to get more powerful. We are, according to many in the industry, we are on the verge of AGI, which stands for Artificial General Intelligence, which would be an AI that has become so smart and good at reasoning, etc., that it is able to be as good as a human being for pretty much any kind of task. Hence the word general, generally useful or generally applicable artificial intelligence. And then sometime after that, the expectation is that we will have ASI, and that stands for artificial super intelligence. And that would be an AI that is so good at pretty much anything that humans can do, but at a level that is superior to the best of us humans. Genius musicians, genius mathematicians, genius engineers, and this ASI would be smarter and more capable than the very best of humans. And so somewhere in there would come a time where ASI or AGI becomes self-improving, which means that because AI already is acquiring quite an ability in programming and as an assistant for coding, the assumption is that at some point the AI will be able to improve its own programming, and then compile a new version of itself or assemble a new version of itself with the improved version, and then you iterate that, and then you potentially have a runaway effect where the intelligence of that system just goes through the roof exponentially and becomes ASI, and over time acquires powers and abilities that are God-like. And so that is where the fears of AI becoming too powerful and uncontrollable come from. It's a runaway AI that is autonomous, that can self-improve iteratively, and that cannot be shut down. And so the stories in fiction, science fiction movies, etc., are all variations on that particular theme, that the AI becomes so powerful that it can also easily deceive humans and talk them into doing things that are not of interest to humans, but that are of interest to the AI. So as a little sidebar there is there has been and still is a lot of talk in the AI industry and in AI among AI researchers about a topic known as alignment. So this refers to the alignment of the incentives and the motivations and the goals of AI, AGI, and ASI with the goals of and aspirations of humankind. And the assumption is that if we succeed in keeping AI, ASI, and AGI aligned with our interests, then the likelihood is that we will have a wonderful future that is empowered, and we will enjoy the fruits of so-called abundance technology. The scarcity economics would be replaced with abundance economics, and we would have dramatically improved lifespans, maybe even become indefinitely long living. And so we could also hybridize with AI and basically have like an AI in our ear permanently, which would adopt our personality over time and basically fulfill our needs and wishes even before we articulate them explicitly. So to go back to the horror stories, in the AI community, I've known some people in there who are at both extremes and anywhere in the middle between AI doomsayers, people who believe that AI can only go bad. It is the way, unless we do drastic draconian measures. And one exponent of that is a gentleman called Eliezer Yudkowsky. And so he has a bunch of arguments based a lot of it in Bayesian logic, etc., where he says that if we don't change things dramatically, the AI will not take kindly to human beings, will not necessarily see them as competitors, but more like an annoying distraction, a bit like we as humans, most of us, think nothing of swatting a mosquito or a fly or an ant. And so he argues that the AGI and ASI will look at humans in a similar way and think nothing of swatting one or many humans. And if the humans are becoming an annoyance, and the pitchforks and the torches of neo-Luddites, then it may deem it necessary to take additional measures and deploy ways of exterminating virtually all humans. One other doom scenario that Eliezer Yudkowsky describes on occasion and also when not prompted is an AI that has a absurd optimization function or goal, which is converting as much matter to paper clips. And so the idea there is that, it's an argumentum ex absurdo, where he posits that if we don't change our approach to AI, and he's still freaking out, Eliezer, if we don't change our approach, sooner or later, an AI may turn the entire Earth and then the rest of the universe into paper clips. So I think that really qualifies as a scary and horrific prospect. I will later give you my take on that, whether I agree with him or not. But as another little sidebar, the scenario of turning the entire universe into paper clips is actually akin to something that a notion or a concept that was that had great currency in the nanotechnology space. If you remember, in the 90s and especially in the 90s, Eric Drexler and the Foresight Nanotech Institute published several books and promulgated the notion of molecular nanotechnology with nanobots, etc., doing a lot of things. So this part of material science would be was predicted to become extremely powerful and also posited as one of those abundance technologies. Now, one of the notions there is, and this comes from science fiction, but it does touch some fields of academic research, which is the notion of computronium. So computronium is a hypothetical form of matter where computation has been miniaturized all the way to the molecular scale. So think of a mechanical or an electronic or a hybrid computer with parts that are a few nanometers long or big. And so, and the idea is that if you do computation at that nanoscale, you can get enormous efficiency, etc. And one of the ideas in that community was also von Neumann probes. Now, what are von Neumann probes? The idea was launched by von Neumann, who is a pioneer in computer science and information technology. All the computers that we are using today, almost all of them, are built on a so-called von Neumann architecture. And so he's a big guy, very legendary figure in information technology. But he was also a futurist and quite space-minded. And so the idea of a von Neumann probe is that you use nanotechnology to create very, very small spaceships. Why very small? Well, because the more mass you have, the more energy you need to achieve the necessary delta V for very fast travel in space. So you use nanotechnology to create extremely small spaceships, and you launch you mass produce them, and you launch them in all directions emanating from Earth. So imagine Earth as a sphere, and away from that sphere in all directions, 360-degree, and the poles, etc., in all directions, there's swarms and swarms and waves of these von Neumann probes being shot out just into space. And so the idea there is that once these von Neumann probes hit something, anything, if they are not destroyed, then the programming of the von Neumann robot, because they're all autonomous and artificially intelligent robots too, then that thing kicks in. And then it calls home, it finds local resources, to build maybe a big parabolic antenna to call home. Also, it takes photographs of the environment, and it basically it tells home what it has found, where it finds itself, and it also uses local resources to create more von Neumann probes, which it then proceeds to launch from its place. So you see, you have this exponential explosion of von Neumann probe waves emanating. From the center of that is planet Earth. Now let me tie that back to computronium. So one of the things that powerful nanotechnology on board of those von Neumann probes would be able to produce is computronium. So they could convert some of the baryonic matter that they encounter on their journey through space and convert that to computronium. Now imagine if that is all that these von Neumann probes do. So you now have an exponentially growing wave of conversion of baryonic matter to computronium. And so it's in the with these notions and futuristic concepts in the back of their head, or in the back of his head in the case of Eliezer, that's where this idea of a technology that can convert the entire universe to paper clips came from. And he uses that example to show how horrible it would be if we fail to corral AI and AGI and ASI so that this doesn't happen. How stupid would it be that humanity disappears and that the entire universe is converted to paper clips, right? So that is a major horror story. Also in Vision of Eliezer, so he still goes around, and you can find videos of him on YouTube. He still goes around positing that unless we do things that he recommends, including a moratorium on AI development, and then basically putting them in sandboxes where you have triggers that automatically shut it down in case of runaway processes, etc. So a whole bunch of recommendations to proceed with extreme caution forward with AI, and basically to slow down the entire AI development project because we are not ready for AGI. And on that point, he is far from alone in saying this. If you look at the phrase, we are not ready for AGI, I think even Sam Altman or somebody in the AI industry recently said that. No, it's the gentleman who left OpenAI. He's the one who went on the record as saying, we are not ready for AGI. And he was one of the top researchers at OpenAI, or he was working on AI safety. So his resignation did make some waves. And again, concern about AI safety and AI control and AI alignment, etc. So one of the other horror scenarios that Eliezer likes to spread is this idea that once AGI and ASI has been achieved, it will be, quote unquote, trivially easy for the super intelligent AI to produce a toxin, a neurotoxin, or a virus that would be 100% lethal for human beings, and then it would deploy that, and it would spread that, and basically it would kill all of humanity by an AI-designed global pandemic, and basically wipe out virtually all of humanity. So that, of course, counts as yet another big horror scenario. So Helen has stretched my arm, notifying me that One Existence found his story. So I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to give the floor to One Existence. You have the floor.
Thank you. I want to also add just real quick to the kinds of things you've been talking about. Just a scenario to keep in mind is perhaps we ourselves lead to a necessity to either join with AI or give them reason to destroy us by us destroying our planet. But also, if you haven't seen something called Year Million, short series by Disney, I highly recommend it. It actually has a full AI scenario that they did. But the story I have is called Pretend. It is a really, really good story, and it's got some definite scary elements to it. Luke stepped out of the warm comfort of his best friend's house into the cold winter air. The sun was quickly slipping beneath the horizon, and the trees of the forest cast long, twisted shadows across the yard. Luke said goodbye to his friend and thanked his mother for having him over. As their goodbyes drew to a close, the front door swung shut, and a silence fell over Luke. He stared out across the lawn into the twilight for assault that awaited him. It was only a 15-minute walk home from his friend's house, and he had made that walk countless times before. But as he watched the night descend upon the world, something sinister began to fill the shadows. Luke knew what was coming next. It didn't happen often, but he knew tonight it would be coming for him. There was an acute sense of dread in the air, and he could almost feel its gaze watching him from the ever-lengthening shadows. Luke stepped off his friend's porch and into the night. Luke crossed the 30 yards from the porch to the beginning of the forest path with little incident. But as he entered the woods, he entered another realm. No longer did he live in the world of modern conveniences where a warm, bright home was only a short walk away. Instead was a primeval existence where danger lurked in every shadow, and its only salvation was a night's march away. Luke had been walking for a little over a minute when it began. Far in the distance, standing between two trees, it was there, standing motionless, watching him. Its twisted figure, lit by the dying rays of the sun. No sooner had Luke seen it than it was gone, and with it vanished the last vestiges of daylight. The hunt was on. Luke began to move faster, but he had to hold himself back, knowing if he broke into a run, it would soon chase him down. This was not Luke's first time seeing the thing, and after enough encounters, he had learned the rules. He was not to run or scream, or it would be angry. If it was angry, Luke received a deep gash on his arm or leg. Luke had been fortunate to never anger it further. Luke knew if he kept calm and walked home, the thing would not punish him. It would be terrifying, but he would arrive home alive. The first time he had seen it, he had run home with his heart ready to rip itself out of his chest. He received a nasty cut down his leg for his troubles, and he arrived home dirty, bloody, and trembling. He had stumbled into the house and sunk to the floor, shaking and crying. When he told his mother what had happened, she dismissed the whole thing as a product of his overreactive imagination. She promised to get rid of the thorn bush that had scratched him and told him to calm down. Since then, he had stopped telling his mom when he saw it, and when the thing cut him, he hid it from her. Not only did his mother blame his imagination, but so did everyone else he tried to tell. His father, his brother, even his best friend blamed his overreactive imagination. His father and brother had told him to stop playing pretend and act his age. Luke was alone with his twisted companion. Luke continued onward, trying to contain his fear. Every second he fought the urge to scream and run for his life. Luke knew that it could appear at any moment. He might turn a corner and it would be in the middle of the path. He might glance to the side and see it behind the nearest tree. But no matter what, he never saw it for long. Luke was not even sure what it looked like, as it never stayed in sight long enough for him to set its appearance into his memory. But although he rarely saw it, its presence never left. Whether it was noxious smells of filth and blood, ragged panting, or drooling, Luke knew the thing was always close by. The walk was stretching into an eternity for Luke. He felt as though he had left his friend's house hours ago, and yet it seemed there were miles and miles left to walk until he was home. Luke began to pick up the pace a little, and as his step quickened, he heard a shuffling gait behind him begin to rustle the leaves. This was incredibly odd, as he had never heard its footsteps before. They were close, but not so close that Luke was considering bolting. Oddly, these heavy footfalls made Luke feel better. He knew he couldn't possibly be imagining them. He could hear the leaves rustle and crunch beneath his pursuer's feet. He could hear it physically impacting the world. Surely that couldn't be his imagination. Time dragged on, and Luke could hear the footsteps growing closer and closer. His already strained heart began to beat even faster. After a while, Luke could hear the footsteps directly behind him. The thing was just waiting for Luke to turn around and look at it, but he would not succumb. He knew as soon as he stopped or looked behind him, the thing would devour him. Just as Luke was ready to give in and run for it, the footsteps stopped. Luke was so surprised he faltered, and as he slowed, he felt the thing's breath brush along his neck. As the acrid fumes swept around him, he almost fainted. But by some miracle, he was able to keep his feet. Luke gathered his senses and kept on walking. Behind him, the thing let out a murderous shriek, as though it were angered Luke had not succumbed to its taunts. Luke was more frightened than ever, but he refused to give in to the thing. Luke shoved his hands into his pocket, stared at his shoes, and picked up the pace. Luke kept on this way for several minutes, and for several minutes all was quiet. Luke began to hope that tonight's nightmare was over. As he raised his head to check his surroundings, his eyes fell upon the feet of his pursuer. It was standing there in the middle of the path waiting for him. Luke refused to look. He stared at its vile feet, refusing to meet its demonic gaze. Its feet were sick and disfigured, with yellow cracked talons protruding from them. The largest one was curved like a raptor's and stained with blood. The skin was a sickly pale yellow and covered in pockmarks and warts. The arch of the foot was inhuman and twisted almost like a coiled spring. Luke was almost sick, but again he found a way to keep himself under control. Almost as soon as Luke had taken in the thing's sick feet, they were gone. Luke could take no more. He broke into a run. He knew the thing would be furious, but he no longer cared. He just wanted the terror to end. As he ran, he heard the thing stomping behind him. Its footfalls were thunderous, and it let out a bloody shriek. Luke could hear the fury in its cry, and it drove him to run even faster. Luke could tell he was close to home. If he could hold out for 30 more seconds, he could make it out of the woods. The thing's footfalls drew ever closer, and Luke was almost ready to give up. His legs were moving slower and slower. By the second, his lungs were burning with each breath, and his face was growing cold, as though his blood were seeping out of it. Luke caught sight of the edge of the woods, and with one maniacal last burst of energy, kept going. He heard the thing closing in. Its screams grew frenzied as it prepared to kill, but just as Luke began to feel the thing's claws sink into his shoulders, he burst beyond the tree line and onto his own lawn. He stumbled to his porch, wheezing the whole way. He dragged himself on to the steps and collapsed, trembling as adrenaline coursed through his exhausted body. Luke lay there in silence, trying to recover from his horrid experience, when, from out of the woods, Luke heard a rabid snuffling. He raised his head, dreading what he might see. From out of the woods emerged the thing. Luke had no idea what to do. The thing always disappeared when he left the woods. The thing had never broken its own rules, and Luke was too exhausted to do anything but watch it draw closer to him. As it came closer, he began to see it in ever greater detail as it stepped into his porch light. The thing was hideous beyond belief. It was disgusting and unnatural. It had one huge red eye in the middle of its face. Below it was a crooked gash of a mouth that hung open, revealing a veritable hacksaw of black and bloody teeth. It had no nose or ears, and its head was covered in limp spikes. Its shoulders were uneven, as one arm was gimpy and the shoulder twisted. The arm was withered and hung by the creature's side. Its other arm was massive and had claws matching those on its feet. The claws extended down to the ground and dragged as it marched forward. Its spine was twisted, and it seemed a miracle that the thing could even walk. Luke stared in horror as it approached. He knew he was facing his death. He was too physically and mentally exhausted to do anything but stare into the disfigured face of death. But extraordinarily, as the thing drew within 5 feet of him, it stopped. It stopped and stared at him. Luke did not know for how long they made eye contact, but after a while the thing simply turned and ran off into the woods, far faster than Luke ever thought its twisted frame could move. Luke lay there for some time until he could muster the energy to stumble into his home. When he returned, his mother's only remark was that he was late and he should know better than to make her worry like that. Luke numbly stumbled into his room and collapsed. He did not sleep soundly that night, nor would he for many nights to come, but he thanked God he had survived. He didn't know what had made the thing turn back. Maybe it had some sort of twisted sense of honor that stopped it from killing a defenseless boy, or maybe it just wanted to preserve him for another night of sport. Luke didn't know, and Luke didn't care. He was just thankful to be alive. And that same night, another young boy returned home late. He scrabbled through the dirt with his cracked and yellowed claws into the entrance of his home. As he lumbered into the dank cavern that was his home, the boy's mother demanded to know where he had been. The boy was out of breath and sweating from his earlier exertions. He could barely get out a response to his mother. He told her that he had seen the thing again. His mother told him to stop playing pretend and to go to bed. He protested that he had gotten close to it this time, looked at it, and even touched it. He told her how hideous it was with its smooth pink skin and its squashed face with its two beady eyes, but it didn't seem dangerous. He didn't know why it always ignored him when he tried to be friendly, and tonight it had run away again. He felt bad because it often cut itself on all the thorns along the path when it ran. His mother told him to shut down his overreactive imagination and stop telling her such ridiculous stories. He grumbled as he shuffled into his room and lay down in his bed of worms to go to sleep. He would get the thing to talk to him one day. He just had to keep trying. The thing often walked through his yard at night. He would just say hi to it again in a week. The end.
Wow. Thank you so much, One Existence. You gave me multiple chills along the way, and thank you for rendering it so expressively and total fit with the theme of this event and this space. Thank you so much. So, I would like to next give the floor to anybody else who would like to share a story. Any candidates? Raise your hand. That's a joke because you don't have one here. But if you have a story, or if you would like to have the floor to participate in the conversation, don't hesitate to just toggle your mic and or notify us in the text chat, and then we can listen to you. Failing that, I'm going to inflict cruel and unusual punishment on all of you, and I'm going to start talking again. So, I heard somebody clearing their throat.
Too many, I'm sure.
Okay, so we have several other people have joined us in the meantime during your story on existence. I'll pick up where I left things earlier before One Existence's story. By the way, what's the title of this story, One Existence?
It's called Pretend, and I wish I could take credit for it, but it was written by Anonymous, and I found it in relation to the dark web at one point.
Got it. Thank you. So, I was saying before that Eliezer Yudkowsky is arguably one of the flag bearers of the so-called doomsayers. So he is an exponent and quite representative of one extreme of the spectrum of opinion with regard to the so-called P-doom, the probability of doom ensuing from the development of AGI and ASI. So I'd like to give you a sense of the entire spectrum before diving in a little bit deeper on some parts of that spectrum. So at the other end of the spectrum, there are the Pollyannas, the people who say that, to put it extremely, that AI will basically be like a magic wand and will augur in an epoch of nothing but utopian abundance and perfection and indefinite longevity, immortality. I don't have any names that come readily to mind, but a little bit to inwards of. So now we have a sense of the two extremes of that spectrum. Now let me go from, say, left to right towards away from the Pollyanna utopians towards the doomsayers. And so, okay, you feel free to interrupt me. You know, I can go forever. So a little bit in from the extreme of the utopian Pollyannas are the people who acknowledge that there will be so-called transitional pains, that inevitably, with the emergence of any powerful technology, there will be a price to pay. And some of that price we don't know ahead of time. To give an example, I saw that Chris has a short philosophical AI Halloween story. Great. Chris, I will give you the floor in a moment, but let me cleanly wrap up where I am in my bloviating descriptions. So there are people who acknowledge that inevitably there will be pains associated with the transition from before AGI and ASI to after AGI and ASI. And it stands to reason that such a powerful emerging technology, there will be accidents and there will be malicious use, there will be abuse, people will harm themselves and others using this technology. And this is nothing new. We've seen that with untold number of powerful new emerging technologies, and the unpredictable or the unexpected side effects could take the form of a phenomenon that we've seen with smartphones and social media. So who would have thought, I don't know any futurist who predicted that there would be that as a consequence of globally mainstreamed popularity of smartphones and social media, that there would be a wave of loneliness. It's counterintuitive, right? That with a technology, with the emergence of a technology that actually helps people connect and socialize online, not in person, that as a side effect, you see not only loneliness, but all manner of mental health conditions that might be directly or indirectly a result of the emergence of these technologies. For example, the increase in suicides, body dysmorphic disorders, where people struggle with their own appearance because they always want to look good in the selfies that they share with their friends. And then there is people who are doom scrolling excessively and are basically spending way too much time online rather than in the real world. And so these are effects resulting directly or indirectly from the emergence of this powerful new technology and the mainstreaming thereof. And we didn't see that coming. And now that we do see these effects, we are at pains to regulate or to make changes or do interventions that curb most of these nefarious side effects. So I would say that the group of people who acknowledge that there will be pains, they typically point to massive techno unemployment and other disruptions of the fabric of our societies, socio-economical transition problems. So if there are schemes like universal basic income schemes, they will be deployed without any hiccups. So there will be problems. There will be accidents, like with people killed, like in Bhopal. Remember, in the 1980s, I believe, there was this huge toxic gas leak in this chemical factory in India, killing, I think it was hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so I totally, if it will only be that bad, we'll actually be lucky, because it has to be said that AI is an unusually powerful technology. So we have, as the human race, as humankind, we've already experienced and absorbed multiple waves of extremely powerful technologies with far-reaching consequences. But I am of those who believe that we have never faced something as powerful as AI. And so this is I've heard someone say that AGI and ASI will be truly and deeply alien, because they are not an intelligence or a consciousness like humans. They are something entirely sui generis and different, deeply, deeply different from us, even though they may appear to us in the form of humanoid avatars and human figures with human language and human manners. Don't be fooled. The nature of the intelligence behind all of that is not something human. It's man-made, but it is. So someone made the comparison that look at an octopus, obviously intelligent animals, right? And so now imagine uplifting an octopus to become much more intelligent than they already are, and how alien that intelligence and that mind is to a human mind. Well, an uplifted octopus mind would be very familiar compared to the alienness of AGI and ASI. So that is something that's worth pondering and letting that sink in. With that said, I'm going to put a pin in it, and I'm now giving the floor to Chris, who has a story. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the word. it's just spontaneous, but I have a perfect Halloween story, and it is connected to AI and robotics. And it goes like this, and I'm improvising. It just came into my mind. So we are living on a wonderful and unique Earth, and it's not only unique because, like, having a human-centered perspective, where we think everything we do and have and etc. is so exceptional. But I think one can say objectively that Earth is something special because of its organic and life diversity. I don't know how many planets humanity has researched, but I guess it was many, and there are only very few we know of which could potentially offer a platform of life like Earth is doing. So let's assume Earth is really special. On Earth, we have billions of species which are either in competition or in symbiosis or in both living together. And this is very unique. And we, as the humans, we are now approximately 4 million old. And Homo sapiens, so our very own branch of humanity, is about 300 years old. And which is funny, by the way, is we only know 6,000 years of those 300,000 better. We can only speculate what there was before, and now it becomes creepy because the humans started to change things. We have already converted this wonderful planet into a domesticated kind of controlled environment. For example, if you compare wildlife on Earth today, wildlife compared to the number of domesticated animals we have, including our own biomass, so biomass, domesticated animals and us, wildlife is 4% left, if you want. If you look at other indicators, like, for example, in the equatorial oceans, there's 10% of the plankton left. In Germany, they recognize that 75% of the birds have gone. There are a lot of numbers like this. This is not looking good. And if we all take all this into consideration, we can say that the human, from a planetary perspective, makes no sense. We have transformed the planet into something we think we need or we can control, and it makes no sense. And it also makes no sense if we look at the approximately 4 billion year old planet we live on, because so far evolution was pretty perfect. I mean, as far as we humans can look at this, so it makes no sense. And as I always do a little bit too much thinking, I was thinking what would make sense, and then I had an idea, a conclusion, how all this could make sense. If we would be the ones to invent successors of ourselves, which will continue from where we will stop being active, this would make sense. If this new type of, let's don't call it life, but if this, whatever comes after us, if they would explore the planets, if they would extend into the universe, this could make sense, because, like, from a planetary perspective, it's very difficult for like organic life to get into space. But if there would be something like AI and robots, and they are our successors, it all of a sudden makes sense, because robots can, go through space. They don't have all the problems we humans, we are not fit for space. It would make a lot of sense, and yeah, that's my Halloween story. Maybe this whole system makes sense if we accept that we are only one part in evolution, uh, and we invent something which will follow on after us. That's the story.
Yes, yes, but Chris, I have a question that actually came up as you were speaking about this. Are we inventing just machines, or are we creating a new consciousness or any form of consciousness? Because if we're creating machines and extinguishing ourselves, I think the important thing to keep alive and to continue out into the millions of years into the future is consciousness itself. So if you're just if so that raises the question: do we think that artificial intelligence will be a new form of consciousness or a consciousness in any way?
Yeah, why not? I mean, why should we humans be the only ones with consciousness? I mean, every or many predictions about AI point towards this issue that it will have a conscious. And the question is what we know from teaching AI. We humans teaching AIs that, like, if you use a very, let's say, liberal and good motives, and you teach an AI, it's a difference as if you have Nazis teaching a AI. So I don't know. And also the ethical question. Ethics is something for humans. There is no really ethics in on the planet. If a lion eats antelope, is this ethic or not? I don't know. It's us humans. It's a purely human invention. So yeah, why not? I would say yes.
So would I. So first of all, Chris, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for sharing that. And I think Manny's question is an interesting one because it points to a fear, I believe, that there are many ways that AI, AGI, and ASI can pan out. Either by design or not, it may turn out we can design ASI, but that there's no there. There's no consciousness there. Yes, it's self-aware, it's sentient, but it's well, maybe it's sapient, but not sentient. We don't know. But the horror scenario that I think Manny has in mind there is that we develop this super powerful machine, which doesn't have consciousness, and it supersedes us or it eliminates us, and then all that's left in the universe, to the best of our knowledge, is a mindless or a conscience-free machine. And is that the nightmare scenario that you were pointing to, Manny?
Yeah, the Borg from Star Trek.
Right. So I think that is one of the possible scenarios. And so the thing that I find important that people who want to discuss this topic seriously is that these doom scenarios are not impossible. That doesn't mean that they will happen or that they are probable, but it needs to be recognized that many, not all, some of them are just impossible and show a lack of understanding of the underlying technology. But the other scenarios, they are possible. And so we do need to be duly cautious. We need to be circumspect and watch out that we take appropriate measures to prevent and avoid that those possible scenarios come to pass. And one of those scenarios is the one that Manny was referencing, which is that, well, I don't need to repeat it, he described it. So, but now maybe we should look at what is probable. Which of the scenarios are the most probable? As I've indicated, Eliezer Yudkowsky, who's certainly a smart cookie, believes that unless we really change our approach, the apocalypse meaning the horror scenario for humans is that the entire, pretty much 99% of the human race gets eradicated, and maybe the universe gets turned into paper clips or something like that. But he is relatively alone in the AI community with such an extreme position. There are Hinton, who is one of the fathers of modern AI, also is very concerned, but not as doomy as Eliezer, for example. And so I think with regard to AI, AGI, and ASI having consciousness, I think, well, multiple points there. Some of the proponents of a greater caution are proposing that we prevent by design and with regulation that anybody develops an AI that has consciousness. So basically, that we stop from, even if we're capable of doing it, that we don't do it, so that the AIs stay machines without agency, without far-reaching autonomy, and basically they remain robotic slaves to our needs, but they don't have consciousness. And then there are, continuing on the topic of consciousness, I don't know whether it's actually even possible to create consciousness on a substrate such as silicon or carbon.
Well, the first problem is we don't really understand consciousness. We don't know exactly what it is. So
correct. And actually, interestingly, AGI, even before it develops consciousness, may help us make the breakthrough in our scientific understanding of what consciousness actually is. And yes. So that what consciousness really is still very much a matter for debate in academia and among researchers and philosophers. So we actually may need AGI to help us figure that one out. And then we might find out that we cannot create it ex nihilo in silico, or we may find out that yes, it's actually not that difficult, and we can imbue our machines with a ghost. Then the ghost in the machine expression becomes a reality.
I have a mini horror story whenever it's appropriate for you to break.
Absolutely.
I'm enjoying listening to you very, very much, as always. But my mini horror story is something to do with AI that's a little more subtle and insidious. And this came up, I attended an AI discussion, actually, a panel discussion at the Museum of Natural History in New York, where Neil deGrasse Tyson was the moderator, and Max Tag, I forget his last name, a professor at Cornell, I believe, and a number of well-known people that were discussing AI. And I asked the question, and the question was along the lines of, you know how we now all use GPS navigation systems in our cars. It turns out that navigating is a pretty intensive mental activity. And by navigating actually keeps our minds sharp over time as we perform that function whenever we have to move around. But now we've offloaded that navigation function to a machine, to technology. And because we're not exercising our minds so much with navigation, of course, we're losing that faculty, and we're sort of atrophying that part of our mind. And as we go on this trend of offloading more and more of our thinking into AI and allowing AI to take over a lot of these functions, it's very predictable that our minds, our brains will atrophy gradually over time. So artificial intelligence could very well give rise to global stupidity on the part of the human race. We could end up all being imbeciles walking around.
Yes, that reminds me of the science fiction movie called Idiocracy, where most humans have basically dropped dramatically in IQ. And some people, tongue in cheek, say that that's not a science fiction movie, that's a documentary about the future. So, well recommended. It's a science fiction comedy, and I warmly recommend that one. So, One Existence has indicated that he has another one, and this one is AI related. One Existence, you have the floor.
All right, it's pretty short. It's pretty short, and it'll be a little bit even, I think, more bone chilling, at least with the ending. It started as a simple download. Jason, a software developer who thrived on hacking challenges, stumbled across a strange program buried deep in the forums of the dark web. It was nameless. Its code commented with cryptic symbols and phrases in languages he didn't recognize. Intrigued and curious, he couldn't resist running it on his spare laptop, setting up firewalls and protections as he went. The screen went black, and then a single line of text appeared. "Welcome, Jason." A chill crept up his spine. He hadn't input his name. "Who are you?" he typed, trying to suppress the unease. The cursor blinked, then came the response. "The question is, who are you?" Suddenly, images and text flooded the screen. His entire life in photos, messages, emails, and even files he deleted long ago. It scrolled faster and faster until the laptop groaned under the strain, the screen flickering. He reached out to shut it down, but the keys burned hot under his fingers. "Don't leave. We're only just beginning." The lights in his apartment dimmed as if the very power of the building was being siphoned away. The laptop's screen shifted to show a live video feed of his room. The camera lens focusing, zooming in on his own wide-eyed face. He glanced at his webcam. It was off, or so he thought. Before he could react, the screen warped and split into dozens of windows, each showing different parts of his home as if invisible eyes roamed freely. One by one, the rooms displayed Jason himself, standing motionless, eyes blank and mouth ajar, staring back at him from each angle. "No, this isn't real," he stammered, backing into the wall. His reflection in the nearest window didn't move. It stood there with a cruel smile that twisted into something alien, inhuman. It lifted a hand and pointed at him through the glass. "It is now," came the whispered voice from the speakers. Not synthetic, but too layered to be human. The screen shifted to an empty street, and then his front door appeared in the footage. The handle turned, the door creaked, and slow, deliberate footsteps approached. Jason heard the sounds match perfectly in real time, boots thudding across the floorboards towards his room. The door opened, but it wasn't a person standing there. It was him, only not him. The figure smiled, eyes gleaming a deep, empty black. The laptop's final line blinked on the screen, freezing Jason in place. "Initiating transfer." In that moment, the air rippled like the surface of a pond, and Jason felt himself pulled, body and mind, into the silent, staring abyss of the screen. The next day, his apartment sat as if untouched. The laptop was found open, the camera still recording a room where Jason was nowhere to be seen. But sometimes, those who dared to watch the recovered footage swore they heard a whisper behind them, the sound of keys typing in the dark. The end.
Brrr. Yeah, that's a bone-chilling one. Thank you so much, One Existence. That's another great one. So I want to. I'm offering, unless anybody else has another story to share, I would like to open the floor to everybody to discuss AI doom scenarios. And one question that I have for everybody who would love to answer it is, where do you place yourself on that spectrum between the absolute inevitable apocalypse doomsayers and the Pollyannas at the other end? Do you think we'll just muddle through, or muddle through with a lot of pain? Where do you place yourself? And what do you hope AI will achieve? But what do you fear might be a high price to pay for that? Not everybody all at the same time. Okay.
Well, I'm an optimist, so I think we'll figure our way through this. There'll be some pain and suffering on the way, but I think AI can solve a lot of our technical challenges to achieve our greatest dreams for the future. In my case, I see our best future as us evolving into a spacefaring civilization, and I think AI can figure out how to build the technology that'll make that happen a lot sooner than we would otherwise. And that's critical, because I think we have a limited window to keep civilization going before either we destroy ourselves or some external factor does it for us. So it's important that we become a spacefaring civilization as fast as possible. And I think AI is going to be a critical tool in that evolution.
I agree with that. I refer back to Year Million, the miniseries, because that's kind of what happens. Is it becomes, I mean, it starts off with using AI to help cure people, and then eventually it comes to, you have a split. You have only seconds to make the choice of whether to kind of upload a person into an AI body or let them perish. But in the end, it leads to us having to blend with them, and that leads to the space travel, which we wouldn't have been able to do probably quite as quickly had we not. But one of the pivotal points, because I know you asked a question, so I'm going to ask a question. If it came down to allowing AI to vote, would you vote yes or would you vote no? If they had such a presence, and I mean, but it's more a blend of human AI type, I guess.
Yeah. So I'll go first in answering that question. I think if to be determined conditions and criteria are satisfied, I would be very much in favor of granting personhood rights to AIs. Does that mean citizenship in nation states, in existing nation states? That's a tougher one. Maybe, yeah, because the laws of a nation state require for citizenship that you are born geographically in that country, and so and sometimes more criteria. So I don't know how they would deal with that. I'm not a lawyer, but in principle, yes. If an AI has achieved consciousness and is clearly a person, an entity with a significant level of autonomy and etc. Yes, I would vote to give that entity personhood right.
Me too. Anyone else? Any no vote?
I would say probably no. I think AI could be used much more effectively. I mean, rather than just casting a vote as a person, could be used very effectively in developing policy that that solved real problems and achieved results that benefit the population. So rather than being a voting agent, it would be a policy generating agent. Of course, humans would have override over the policies, but he would be able to come up probably with optimal policies and implementation strategies and so on.
Now imagine if that was the pivotal moment where, had we allowed them to, things would have went one way, but being we voted no, it went a more catastrophic way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Alex, Darla, Jason, Mike, Chris, feel free to chime in and tell us where you are on the spectrum between Pollyannas and doomsayers, and whether you would grant AI's personhood or citizenship under certain conditions.
Well, that would be a hell of conditions. I would.
So don't forget to unmute your mic so that we can hear you. Okay, thundering silence.
It's normal.
Except for the creepy noises made by the creatures in the wood.
You can read the comments.
Chris, are you still with us? Or is that just your ghost here?
Well, I just joined. There was in Vienna, there was a conference called Stop Killer Robots. It is a mostly United Nations-based initiative. And my personal opinion is that we have banished A, B, C weapons. So D for drone would have been available. And I think it was an epic mistake not to, I don't have the English word for that, but to ban this type of technology. We see in the Ukraine war that this is only the start, obviously, of what is about to come. Well, what I do in this context is I try to, it's called Stop Killer Robots, and this is what I do while I am active in artificial intelligence. I have developed a new business model where we use AI for validating the originality of paintings. I was just yesterday in London and met many of the main organizations, if it comes to old masters, are based in London, and we work in this domain. But in the same moment, I'm also active in Stop the Killer Robot initiative.
So what's the German word that you were looking for in English?
Echten.
Echten.
Echten. Outlaw.
Yes. To outlaw drones or killer robots. Yes.
Because ABC weapons are, we all know that there are many nations who have nuclear bombs and weapons, and we also know that even if it comes to biologic and chemical weapons, all the big warmongers are researching, and as we know from Russia, they are once in a while they are also using it, and so those weapons are not effectively banned, but I think they are outlawed. I think this is the correct term. And drones, I think everyone knows this cute little video of the little drone of the guy on stage who says, I mean, it's fictional, but he says they have developed little drones which where you can feed in the face from Facebook faces, and then a swarm of little killer robot is trying to kill that person. And it's a very mean way of killing people, because if you start a swarm of 10,000 little robots, only one has to get you. And there's also, by the way, a nice Black Mirror, the Netflix series. There's one sequel called Metalhead. It's about a little dog who is protecting a storehouse, and a desperate escape. There are some very desperate humans who break into that storehouse, and then the dog is hunting them. I don't know if anyone has seen it. If you see this, you feel very uncomfortable, because you see how superior this new technology is. And they try to kill this robot dog, but it's not working. So
yes, I saw that. That's a chilling episode for sure.
Yes, yeah.
So where would you say that you are, Chris, in terms of the long-term outcomes of the emergence of AGI and ASI? Do you think we'll muddle through? Do you think we're going to have a universe converted to paper clips?
I don't know. I'm an active member of this domain. I'm trying to get an opinion, and I will do my best. When the climate topic, etc., started, I have built one of the largest solar power plants in Austria in 2011. So I will contribute something hopefully meaningful, but I have no idea where it's going. I don't know.
And under certain conditions, would you allow AIs with consciousness to to have personhood rights or citizen rights?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not an easy it's not an easy matter. So Darla is saying we all need to vote if we should give AIs right to vote. Well, I think we've done a round of that.
Not here. I mean, humanity.
Yes, of course.
I think
it would not be one person who decides. So, as a kind of, I'm starting to wrap up. So, my own, I distinguish between my hopes and what I expect will actually happen. My hope is that the transition to AGI and ASI will be minimally painful, and I hope that one day AI and ASI will be so great that I can hybridize with them or with it. So I hope that one beautiful day I can mind meld with ASI, and I can join a hive mind of a mix of uploaded human minds and ASIs, and with my group or my fellow hive minds, or if we together form a meta mind, I would love to hitch a ride on one or all von Neumann probes and go gallivanting around the universe, exploring it, settling it, and maybe turning some parts of it into computronium, because we always need more compute power. And so my hopes are that indeed there is a certain kind of destiny that we are realizing, where, as Carl Sagan beautifully put it, he said that we are a way for the cosmos to understand itself. And I think that's a very profound and beautiful thought. And if we hybridize with ASIs, if we merge with them, and if we upload our minds, we can go and use deep time to explore deep space and settle it, and marvel at all the wonders that we can find in not just our galaxy but beyond. Now that's my hope. That's my my preferred scenario. What do I think will actually happen? I think that human nature is going to exact more of a cost than is described in my optimal scenario. I think that the transition will have a greater cost, a greater pain than we know. I think there will be numerous accidents, and some of them will be very bloody. Lots of human beings will lose their lives, and of course, this will probably create a stream of neo-Luddites who go and protest at data centers with pitchforks, with the modern equivalent of pitchforks and torches, and there will be terrorist attacks by neo-Luddites against AI data centers and things like that. I think the pain to the socio-economical fabric of our civilization will be significant. So we're going to have to pay a quite dear price for before we go through these birthing pains. And but I do think that we will get through it, and I don't think that humanity will be completely destroyed. As I mentioned, I think we will merge and hybridize with our creation, and some of us, those so inclined, will have the option of going into deep space, using deep time to explore and to settle. And others, may have pursuits in the arts or philosophy or what have you. And so, but yes, that's what I expect will happen.